Hello everyone and welcome to Parshas Mishpatim. Well, it happened. I ran over my remote control. We had a great big SUV just crash over this tiny little remote control about as big as this. This is my mic, and I can no longer just sit here comfortably turning on the video camera, so you're just gonna have to see me awkwardly turning it on and off at the beginning and end of this class. That's great. Okay. So we're going back in this week's Parsha to when we got the Torah. And actually the day before we got the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu, he picked up the blood and he put it into bowls. And he took the blood and he put some on the Mizbech and some he sprinkled on the Jewish people. The Mizbech is the altar. And it says that he divided the blood. And if you look in Rashi over there, Rashi says, who divided the blood? How do you divide blood into bowls? How do you get it perfectly measured? Do you know who divided the blood? Hashem did. It was a miracle. There was a miracle that happened that this blood was perfectly, evenly divided. Now the beauty of Chassidus is that we can now find meaning in this. What does it mean that the blood was divided? And this is why you have to look at the Parsha again when you're an adult, because when you're a child it's like the blood was divided, write it on a test. No, the blood was divided equally. What does that mean? So I'll walk you through what he teaches. He says, when we stood there at Har Sinai, what was special about us then? What was special about us was that we were ke'ish echad b'lev echad, like one man with one heart. We were completely and totally unified. And in that state, we were able to accept the Torah. That was a once in a universe moment that we are always trying to get back to, that state of ke'ish echad b'lev echad, like one man with one heart. And what does it mean to be like one man with one heart? So he says a question, kind of like a rhetorical question. Why do people notice other people's weaknesses? What do you get out of it? A person who notices other people's weaknesses, they themselves live a bitter, bitter life. They're alone. He actually starts out by saying that the Yetzer Hara comes and he makes you feel smart. He makes you feel more than. And in that more than place, all that happens is that you're looking around and you're just noticing other people's weaknesses. And where does that leave you? Alone, unloving, critical. There's no unity there. What do we need to be doing? We need to be noticing our friends' milos. Milos in English is their great attributes. Noticing our friends' greatness. Noticing all the ways that they are fantastic. And not just looking at someone and judging them favorably, but actually noticing, wow, that person is amazing. They're incredible. Look how they daven. Look how they learn. Look what a great mother they are. And not only noticing and then checking yourself, but noticing and getting pleasure. I get pleasure when you succeed. I'm having a moment of pleasure. And when you get pleasure from someone else's greatness, do you know what the experience is? This is so cool. It's as if you did it yourself. You get that same pleasure. But not only on the pleasure quotient, Hashem himself, God himself, counts it as if you did that thing yourself. So when you take a test in school and someone else does well, but you don't do well, what happens? You didn't do well. He passed, you failed. If you look at that person and you say, I'm so happy for them. Look how they studied. Look what they accomplished. Look how the teacher really enjoys their presence. I'm happy for them. I appreciate who they are as a person. Actually, you did pass the test. You got points in heaven. You actually grew in that moment. And the example that he gives is when someone says a wonderful Amen Yehei Shemei Rabbah. When someone says that with fervor, and you look at them and you say, wow, what a yid. He's amazing. Then you actually, it's as if you're participating in their action. You're participating in that Amen Yehei Shemei Rabbah. So what is the lesson with splitting the blood half and half? Check this out. It's amazing. This is the covenant. Oh my gosh, it's too beautiful. I can't even handle it. It's so gorgeous. Okay, give me a moment to compose myself here. This is the covenant that we made with Hashem. This was an echo of the Bris Bein Habsarim, the covenant that Hashem made with Avram Avinu. This half and half covenant. That what does real love mean? Real love means that there's no condescension. There's no I'm bigger than you. There's you're big and I'm big. There's no need for anyone to be a leader. There's no need for anyone to make themselves small. In his words, if you want to establish something really safe, in real love, there cannot be a leader. And Hashem himself is telling this to us in a way that's impossible for us to understand. It's a miracle. It's a confusion. It's one of the mysteries of the world. But the Torah tells us clearly, Hashem himself said, do you know what I want with you? I want this Bris Bein Habsarim, this half and half relationship, this equal partnership. Now, of course, God is greater than us. Of course, I mean, that's like, even to say that is a weirdo kind of statement. It's like, is a computer greater than its inventor? I mean, just that's not even a good analogy. It's a crazy thing to say. But how Hashem wants us to relate to him is not in some kind of distant, far-off leader. That's distance. That's not actual love. What makes us want to serve Hashem is not thinking about how much greater he is than us, but how much he sees us, understands us, loves us. And that's why Hashem himself, he came down to Har Sinai. He came to us. It just makes me crazy. He didn't say, come to me. I'm so high and holy. You have to come to me because you're a peanut. He himself came to the mountain and he spoke to us. That's the relationship that he wants from us. And what's the relationship here between that and K'ish Echad B'Lev Echad? Because we need to have this kind of love with another person, and I don't have to make myself small. Some people say, I need someone to lead me. I need someone to tell me what to do. Then I know what to do in a relationship. You know, when a young bride first gets married, why does she make her husband dinner? Because she wants to make him happy, and also she's kind of scared because she's supposed to make him happy, and there's things that she's supposed to do, and she's nervous of him. What is closer? A young bride who's running around trying to get everything perfect for her husband to perform for him? Or an old bride who sometimes doesn't make dinner? Oh gee, am I talking about myself? But knows that she is understood and understands her husband's needs. And in my case, orders him takeout. What's a deeper love? What's a deeper connection? Where there's an understanding that there's two wholes. So this is a tremendously humbling feeling. And one of the ways that we can test our love, test our levels of love, is we can see how we look at other people. Do we put them on pedestals and make ourselves small? Or do we do the opposite? Do we have some condescension in our love? And looking at our relationships and seeing, do we have to one-up people? Do we have to be in charge of people? Do we have to think of all the ways that we're better than people? Or can we make a place where everyone can shine? So it's very, very beautiful for me to hear this in particular, because I have a very strong, deep desire and mission to make everyone shine. And not make, but allow, make a space for, empower, uplift every person, every woman to shine. And it helps me to understand where that desire comes from, because it wasn't always there. It's a relatively new mission that I think was there in different ways. But what is it about now for me? And I think that it's about this understanding of healthy love, this moving away from codependency. I know for myself, there is a part of me that is a recovered codependent, 100%. I understand this stuff, And that part of me wasn't sure that two people, and sometimes still isn't sure, and that's why I pushed for this, that two people can shine 100% in the same room, in the same space. And when you see it in action, when you really see it, it is the most gorgeous thing on the planet. I see it at the retreats. It is stunning. There's so much love. There's so much Shechina there. And I've heard this referenced when you talk about two Gedolim, like two great sages standing in each other's presence, fully appreciating what the other one has to offer. There's something so beautiful about that. It's so humbling, so honorable. You're seeing real unity within their differences. You're seeing a whole and a whole come together without any equal halves of the blood. Exactly. So, if you're not familiar with codependence, codependence comes from places that were not nourished in childhood. Pia Melody, whose work I was only recently introduced to through Silky Resnikoff, who runs the TAG program, which is an incredible trauma awareness program. TAP, trauma awareness program in Lakewood, who I hope to be working with in the near future. And I love her very much, even though I barely know her. I think she's incredible and amazing. So she introduced me to this work, and I started to look into it a little bit. Sometimes you can know something very well, but when you listen to the work of an expert, they give you these definitions that really crystallize it. So I listened to her to kind of get some definitions, and the definitions that she gives of being a codependent is what are the symptoms of being codependent. A codependent is unable to experience self-esteem. This is what we were just talking about. Someone's always got to be up or down. So, for example, let's give you an example of a husband and wife. If a husband and wife are codependent, then either he's putting her down because he needs to feel one up, because inside of him he feels so empty that he doesn't have self-esteem, so he needs to acquire self-esteem by making her dependent on him, and he's got to control her and put her down. And she's acting codependent. There's like a dependency here that she thinks that by taking care of him, she will somehow be okay and fix herself. So that's her low self-esteem coming into play. And that's that whole other idea that we bring into our lives exactly what we want to, either consciously or more often subconsciously. We're bringing in the very things that feed how we feel about ourselves. So here you have this wife who is found herself in a situation of being put down because unconsciously she doesn't feel like she's worthy anyway. And so her reaction is either going to be to put him down or to start running her life around his needs and making herself more and more of a nothing, kind of affirming for herself that she's a nothing, so she becomes a party in her own abuse or neglect. So that's the first one, and this has so many ramifications. And the one that related to me, honestly, was the one that I was talking about before, where I wasn't sure, like, if I shine, does that put the other person down? If the other person shines, where does that leave me, pardon me? And that's old stories that I have, and I thank Hashem that I'm not in those stories anymore. I thank Hashem, because there's room for everyone. And you have also, okay, so just leave that for now. Functional boundaries. A codependent is unable to have functional boundaries so that they can protect themselves and keep themselves from being offenders. A codependent is scared of saying no. Where do I end and the other person begin? There's an enmeshment. If I say no, is that rejecting them? If I'm rejecting them, does that make me a bad person? Who am I? The core is so weak. And again, this goes back to having this, to being a full half. That is not healthy love. Healthy love is being able to say no thank you, and no thank you, and that doesn't feel right, and yes please I want that, and no thank you, I don't want that. So having functional boundary doesn't mean putting up a wall, because a wall is distance. And it doesn't mean letting the space between two people completely go. I think it's very, very interesting that the example of love that we're given is in two halves. Because unhealthy love looks like one. It looks like enmeshment. It looks like I don't know where I end and you begin. My job is to take care of you. Guess what, folks? My job is to take care of me. And in taking care of me, I want to take care of you. That's taking care of something that's very precious to me. It's a relationship that's precious to me. But your first job, that's exactly what Hillel said, if I'm not for myself, who am I? If I'm only for myself, then what am I? And then he finishes off, and if not now, when? Because clock is always ticking, right? And we get further and further into the patterns of relationships. So this is a second thing where there cannot be any true intimacy unless there are healthy boundaries. What you have otherwise is distance or enmeshment. The third thing is difficulty owning their own reality politically. We're not talking about politically meaning politics. Politically means opinions. When you find yourself that your opinion matters so much that you have to let it out. You don't know when to hold it back and you don't know when to let it out. You just find yourself explaining too much. That's a sign of codependence. You don't need everyone to understand your every single thought. If a person feels that need to overshare, to defend, to explain, that's a sign that their locus of control is outside of themselves. They've given it away to other people. They've let other people determine their worth. So therefore, if they're not understood by other people, or their position is not valued by other people, or if they don't feel heard by other people, then they are thereby diminished. That's codependence right there. That's not having an independent sense of self. Another one, unable to deal, and just so you know, these definitions are from PM Melody, and I'm just expounding on them by myself, in case you want to look this up. Unable to deal with their needing and wanting. So when a person is severely codependent, then they may neglect their basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, medical needs, emotional needs, physical needs, and just put these all aside because they are dancing around what the other person wants, and they have taught themselves that it's okay to do without. It's okay, I can do without. How many people do you know who are so flexible that they're bent over, I don't need it, it's good for the other guy, And what actually happens is that inside there's an implosion, because one of two things are going to happen. Either they will explode in resentment from time to time because of having their needs so often neglected, even though they created that exact thing by themselves. They created it. They allowed for it. They said, I don't need it, it's okay. 2 weeks later, they're furious. 2 weeks later, they're feeling alone. 2 weeks later, they're feeling like everyone gets stuff, but they don't get stuff. Because they didn't have an accurate barometer of their needs, and they didn't have a true understanding that needs are meant to be met. And you are responsible for meeting your needs. No one is going to say, make sure you get to the doctor, okay, I'm going to drive you, okay, I'm going to make that appointment. No one's going to say, make sure that you get to the party, okay, I'm going to pick you up, okay, I'm going to take you there, okay, I'm going to make you feel comfortable there. No one's going to say that. That's a person's responsibility. That's their half. But what happens when you don't really acknowledge your needs is that they're neglected, and subconsciously you're waiting for other people to acknowledge them, and then at some point you explode. That's one thing that can happen. The other thing that can happen is that you shut down completely emotionally. You start pretending so much that you don't have needs, that you are a shell of a person, and people can't really get to know you. Intimacy is lost. When people meet you, they're only meeting a part of you, because the bulk of you, the honest part of you, is not present. And that's a truly, truly lonely place to be, because it's an illusion of life. It's not real. You're just, only part of you is stepping out. And the last part of that is wanting. A codependent is unable to understand or isn't understanding that their wants are important and valid. The things that we want are the things that bring us joy, and that is personal for every single person. The things that bring us joy must be done. They give us life. They nourish us. We are not just, trees that need a little bit of water and sunlight and our physical needs met. There's things that we enjoy, and some of them are big things and some of them are little things. I enjoy this porch very, very much, even though it looks like mid-America's backyard with all this junk on it. Something that I enjoy is sitting outside, so I'm gonna get to sit out here. That's my want. That's my desire. I'm allowed to have wants. And if you're in a codependent mindset, your wants are completely ignored, completely absolved, so that when a person starts recovering, they suddenly discover, hey, I want things. I want a nice mug for coffee. I'm going to buy it for myself. And this actually becomes a big deal. And part of the recovery process is like, I want this and therefore I should have it. And that's a positive thing. That's a way of affirming that there is a self here. So, hang on just a minute. Just putting something down. In this Parsha, we learn about healthy love, and healthy love does not include hierarchy. And so now that we have this definition of what is healthy love, two healthy halves of a whole, we want to look at the ways in which we fall prey to any type of codependence, any type of putting someone one up than us, or putting someone one down than us, making ourselves better in order to feel better, leading a lonely, bitter life that way. And for women, I feel like a bigger thing that we do is making other people bigger than us. And that's completely unnecessary, and it inhibits true relationships and true friendships. Nobody is one up than you. As much as Hashem loves you, 1,000%, He would do anything in the world for you. He loves them 100,000%. It's all the same. There's opportunity for everyone to give and to contribute, and you never need to make yourself small. I know many women who are divorced who found that at some point they just started running their entire life around their husband, and it took years afterwards to start saying, I'm not going to lose myself again. And and that's really when you see like women becoming more and more fabulous afterwards, because they're now doing this work of saying, there's a self here. What is this self about? What is this self supposed to do? Where do I begin and end? What do I want? What do I not want? And not having to feel that that they need to run their life and their relationships around the idea that someone or something is more than them. So I think that one more thing, if I could just say, this is just, I forgot about this. As I was looking in the Parsha, it became clear to me that there's a theme here about this, an incredible theme, and I want to point it out in two ways so you could just understand. I'll tell you a joke. It's not a joke, but if you're not aware of this, then it's kind of hilarious. Very often what a speaker will do is they have their topic in mind anyway, and then they kind of plug it into the Parsha. And sometimes you got to do that because, like I said, the process of preparing for the Parsha it comes from within as well. Preparing to speak, it comes from within. But when I felt that this was my message for this week, I looked at the Parsha and I was amazed. One second, my notes are on the floor actually. I was amazed at how it's everywhere. First of all, this is Parshas Shkalim. The Shkalim means a shekel, like the Israeli currency. And in the times of the Mishkan, everyone, that's the tabernacle, everyone would donate a half a shekel. Every Jew would donate a half a shekel. Now, why a half a shekel? Isn't that so interesting? So there's a million reasons. Each of us is half, we're together, we're a whole, so many reasons. But as it relates to our message here, it's so clear and so beautiful how it relates to the part of the Parsha where it says that Moshe Rabbeinu split it exactly in half. Guess who gave a half a shekel? Rich people and poor people. There was no, oh, I think I'll give more because I am so wealthy. You give a half a shekel and you give a half shekel. Oh, I think I don't have to give because I'm so poor. No, a half a shekel for everyone, period. That's magnificent. And here's another piece that's in this week's Parsha. It talks about the Eved Ivri. Eved Ivri means the Jewish slave. What's a Jewish slave? Someone who committed a crime, and in order to work off their debt, they voluntarily sell themselves into slavery. A Jew who committed a crime in these times, okay, in biblical times. So the laws of an Eved Ivri are incredible. First of all, just to know, you have to treat your slave like a king, basically. The laws for treating a slave are very, very, very nuanced and very specific, and it's a lot of work to have an Eved Ivri. As a matter of fact, you have to feed your servant before yourself. You have to, if you have a nice pillow, he's got to have the same pillow as you do, up to that, and you cannot give him any menial tasks. You're not allowed to make a servant tie your shoes. It's a respectable way for them to be rehabilitated. And by the Shemitah year, in the 7th year, the sabbatical year, the servant goes free. That's as long as it lasts. What happens if a servant does not want to go free? After all, they're kind of having a good time. They're living rent-free, and they like their job, and they have their master, and life is simple, and they know what to do, and they're told what to do. Then they are given an ear piercing, believe it or not. And this ear piercing is to remind them, remember the words that you heard at Sinai, that Hashem is your master. No human being is your master. Hashem is your master. And you can stay here, but know that you're not making a great choice. You're choosing to be under the servitude of a human being. So this is just incredible how it all comes together, that even someone who has to be sold into slavery, the Torah is so careful to tell him it's not good to be underneath another person. Don't voluntarily put yourself there. And that's where the laws of the Eved Ivri come in. And that's where the warning against codependence comes in. Looking out for this truck that's passing by, which is actually a van, which is actually hilarious, because when you're in an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood, there's a lot of vans, and you have little cute ladies driving these massive vans, 15-passenger vans, to fit their children's carpools. It's really cute. I forgot my sentence, but the point is that right here at Har Sinai, as we enter into a special covenant with Hashem, He's telling us about healthy love, that's the kind of love He wants us to have. Ki ish echad b'lev echad. That's the kind of love that He wants us to have with each other, and that's the kind of love that He wants to have with us. Have a very, very good Shabbos, everyone. Bye-bye.